she's a mountain, then you're an ocean.
Hi, everybody. My name's Lori, and this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TEA Sustainability. And we interview on this podcast people who are helping us create a sustainable world for everyone. And for us, sustainability means taking care of ourselves, taking care of our neighbors, and taking care of the environment. And it includes justice in all of its forms. And we are incredibly thankful today to have with us Alison O'Neil, who is just a sort of a guru in dermatology and in creating beauty and in helping people feel okay in their own skin and learn how to do that. And Alison has a foundation which is called, I just went totally blank, Alison. Beauty
Becomes You.
Beauty Becomes You. I apologize. I'm so sorry for forgetting. And this is our second episode with Alison. And in the first episode, we were treated to this incredible story of how Alison got to where she is now. So we're not going to recap that here. Go back and listen to that episode if you've missed it. To this episode, we're actually going to talk more about, any advice that Alison might have for others and a few other questions. So Alison, thank you so much for sticking around for this second episode.
Thank you, Lori. I'm honored to be here, and I hope I can shed a little bit of wisdom for somebody to help them move further in their life.
Well, you already have. So I think you've accomplished your task, and we'll just do more of that right now. So Alison, our podcast is really about creativity and sustainability. And I think creativity, my feeling is that everything you do is about creating something spectacular and about helping people to realize their best selves. So I would argue that everything about your career, from the fact that you made up this profession and created what you needed, I would say everything about you is creative. So I want to ask you, when you think about sustainability and giving back in a sustainable way, what does that mean for you?
Yeah, thanks. It means several things. I mean, I think from the perspective of giving back and helping others thrive, meaning sustainable, that we need to help each other, and that's what we do with Beauty Becomes You, by touching people, and not only the people do we touch directly that we're intending to touch, but all the volunteers who are involved. I mean, I love it when a volunteer will say, I didn't even know that this field existed, and this is who I want to work with now. And they open up like, wow, that to me is one broad stroke of sustainability. I'm also involved, quite honestly, with cosmetics and sourcing products from around the world. So that's a different sustainability that I think people are very familiar with today, looking for natural products that are helping sustain villagers in poorer countries. And so I love that part of my work too. But we're not talking about that one as much today, but I'm happy to come back and talk about that because that's so cool. Mm-hmm. Beauty Becomes You. That I would say that. I mean, I think sustainability has a lot of definitions, and it's a very good focus for you, I think.
It's a very good focus, and I think what I like is that your emphasis on people who are aging or people who have had some kind of physical injuries or anything that's affected the way they view themselves and the way that they present to the world. Often those groups of people are kind of left behind. And so the idea that you focus on that, where did that come from? So how did that, particularly the aging population, how did you get interested in doing that?
Well, the aging population, interestingly enough, Beauty Becomes You, the name of the charity, was the trust my father left to me, not the charity, but the 3 words. Mm-hmm. And my father was in home hospice for 9 months, and I had the total honor of being able to be there to help my mother take care of him. And every day was just a blessing. And my dad would wake up and he would say, give us the thumbs up, and he'd say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm going to feel better tomorrow. And he had prostate cancer that had metastasized to his bones and brain. So People get sad about it, but I have to tell you, it was not sad. Every day was this brilliant day because he literally woke up every day with this joyous, like, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm going to feel better tomorrow. And he often did. And he taught me a lot in that 9 months about the power of, so it wasn't him that led me to the seniors, working with seniors though. But through that period of time, I have to say this, I love telling this part of the story. I hope you don't mind, but my father and I were really close when I was a little girl. And then, like a lot of people do, when I reached like my teenage years, he really didn't know how to deal with me because he didn't, he was born in 1921, and what do you do with a girl? And I was his good friend. And eventually, the dog, when I was 13, I think, took over my place in the front seat of the car when we went to the Handy City, the swap with Fitz or whatever he would normally take me. And anyway, that was hurtful. But then we also had a big falling out in my late teens. And unfortunately, we really didn't reconnect until I was 39. And he was 39 when I was born. But it was when I was 39 that he became ill. And we reconnected. And for the next 4 years, we had the most beautiful reconnection. So this period of time, this last 9 months of his illness, I was there and at my parents' home. And one day, about 6 weeks before he passed away, we were on the porch, and he loved gardening. So he was digging in flowers. He was in a wheelchair. He was not having conversations anymore because, as I said, the cancer had metastasized to his brain. We heard about the war, World War II, more than ever, which was interesting. But this one day, he and I were on the porch, and I was on the other side fixing a bird feeder, and about a half an hour of silence. You know that when you're with somebody and you can just be with them and it's silent and they're doing their thing and you're doing yours, but you're together. That's what that was. And out of the blue, he said, "Allie," and this is interesting because for 3 years he was very ill, and we were told 6 times that he had 24 hours to live. So at this point, we knew it's up to God. And right now, our job is to make sure he has everything he needs to keep him comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I went over and I said, "Dad, what do you need? How can I help you?" And he had his back to me, and he's digging his flowers, and he kept digging and digging and digging. And I just waited and waited. And finally, he turned around and he said, "Beauty becomes you." Mm-hmm. And he went back to his flowers and started digging. And I thought, oh my gosh. You heard about the patients that I helped originally, and my patients, I'd never heard those words, beauty becomes you. But my therapy for the prior 20 years had been, it's going to be what they did with their lives that would make them beautiful. Yeah. And that's why so many people thrived that I counseled, because I helped them see their worth, right? And I said, "Dad, what did you just say to me?" And he said, "I don't know." And I wrote the 3 words down. He passed away 6 weeks later, and I was lucky enough to have some mentors that invited me to New York, and I met with 4 major companies in New York. Mm-hmm. Met with 3, and 2 of the first 3, like Moet Hennessy, Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy, and another couple of big ones. And these 2 of them said, "You need to meet this guy, Joe Spellman, at Estee Lauder." Mm-hmm. Well, Joe Spellman, who's no longer alive, he was known as the guru in marketing for the entire cosmetics industry, because he's the one that thought of the gift with purchase concept. So if you've ever had the opportunity to go to a cosmetic counter and get the bag and they have all the products in it, Joe Spellman created that in the 60s for Estee Lauder. And when I was 7 years old, which was about the time he developed that, I got lost in a department store, and the Estee Lauder woman saved me. And she kept me behind the counter with her for, I don't even know how long. My mom, probably 2 days. It took my mom, felt like, But anyway, she gave me the first gift with purchase that Estee Lauder ever gave out.
No.
And it was this little pouch that had a little snap on it, and the Estee Lauder blue. And it was Youth Dew powder, Youth Dew fragrance, and Youth Dew lotion. And I kept that pouch for 37 years.
Oh my goodness.
And, I told you the early part of my career, but I did a lot of other things. Started the Look Good, Feel Better program for the American Cancer Society. At 28, I was appointed. I was the youngest person ever appointed to a board in Georgia. And I was on the cosmetology board for 11 years and wrote the national exams for aesthetics 5 times and revised the textbook. And I'd done so many things. I started the first paramedical cosmetology training programs, and I just all kinds of things spoken at conferences. But I was invited to revise this textbook, and I worked so hard at that, and I had editors working with me, and then at the end of my work, the publishing company was publishing another similar book with 6 other authors. And they shut mine down, and I just swore I would never do anything for this practice again. And I threw away the Estee Lauder thing because it was so hurtful. I mean, you go through these things. So we were talking about that. So I probably squirreled off this whole thing. But at any rate, Joe Spellman, I got to meet him, and I thought, I'm going to work for Estee Lauder. And nope, he said, you don't belong in industry. You've done too many nice things for people. I was a very different person then. I was very demure, I would say. And he said, Beauty Becomes You is the name of a charity, and you need to start it. And once you do, we'll help fund you. So that was where my idea to start the charity. And when someone like that tells you start something, it's like God saying, start a charity. That was how big it was. And I left, and immediately after leaving his office, called my girlfriend in Atlanta and said, how do I start a charity? She said, I don't know. And anyway, there's a great story that follows that as well, because it was not easy.
It is not easy to start a charity. That's fantastic. So if you were talking to someone who your initial path, as we talked about in the last episode, was fraught with, no, you can't do this. What are you doing? No, that's not going to work. So what would you tell someone who's younger and who is starting out with this career of passion, this need to do something, and they know that it's the message from the universe, from God, from whatever? What would you tell them about how to persevere and how to believe in themselves to move forward?
All right. I love that question because it's only now in my life, literally this week, that so sorry.
Oh, that's okay. It happens.
It should be turned off. Anyway, so literally this week, this term that I created in the 1980s, aesthetic health, and wrote about it and spoke at national meetings. And I've been on CNN, TBS, in Mademoiselle magazine, Self, Town and Country magazine. I've been talking about this for years, but it's like nobody heard it until the last week. And now I'm going to be starting a global initiative at the Global Wellness Institute called Aesthetic Health.
That's
so
amazing.
What would I tell somebody who's younger that has the same kind of passion or message, or this little voice that keeps saying, this is what you're supposed to do? Just keep doing it. This is not your timing, it's God's timing. But everything that you do adds up. Even my being here with you is such an important part of the entire puzzle. Or when in the early 1900s, there were crazy quilts, and crazy quilts were made from a part of fabric that came from Aunt Sue's dress or grandma, whoever, or the tablecloth over here. They were just, and that's what life is to me. So pretend you're one of those, and everything you do matters. And even the failures, they matter, because there are no failures. Even though my book was never published, I still wrote it. Nobody can take that away from me. I still got paid $20,000, and nobody could take that away from me. I won the argument with that publishing company, and my book was really well done. And there are a lot of things that you will go through that won't be easy. But then there's a lot of things that keep telling you you're on the right path. Well, listen for those. Just listen for those.
That sounds like wonderful advice. Stay open and keep going.
Yeah. I have little signs that I have all around my house that I had the word believe. Oh, can I tell a story?
Sure.
For many years, I've collected all these little things that say believe, and I had 143 different artifacts that said believe, believe, believe. And I got divorced about 10 years ago, and I was thinking, wow, it just doesn't feel enough to believe. So what is it that's missing? And so it was Christmas, and I had 2 yellow labs, and I said to my yellow labs, who were like my kids, I don't have children, and because my whole life has been devoted to my career, I gave that up. I realized early on that my choice would be, if I had children, I would devote myself to them and maybe not get to help the millions of people that I think I'm supposed to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a real conscious decision. I also didn't want anybody to have my skin disorder that I had, because that was not something I'd ever wish on anyone. But at any rate, the dogs and I said, let's watch Miracle on 34th Street, because I love that movie. It was the only Christmas movie I owned, and because that's the only one I cared about. But, most of us, when we watch that movie, we listen to Santa Claus. We hear the movie, we get the idea, here's, but here's that movie. That movie has a saying in it that's repeated 3 times. And I didn't get it till that one day. And I said, I'm going to listen to this and see what it is I'm supposed to really hear. Mm-hmm. And the boyfriend says it to the girlfriend, who's the disbeliever. Remember, the girlfriend's like, oh, there's not really Santa. There's not really, the color, whatever she would say. And there was nothing really. So, and then the little girl, the mother eventually says it to the little girl. And at the end, the little girl says it to us. And the saying that has stuck with me since that day is, faith is believing, even when common sense tells you not to. And that is the secret. That right there is what helps you continue, because there's a lot going on that you don't even know. Yeah, people have seen what you've done. They've taken note, and at the right time, it will come up to being recognized and allowing you the opportunity to do what it is you're supposed to do.
That's beautiful. Perfect. So for you, what would you say, the underpinning of this, the philosophy, the sort of underneath everything we've talked about? What's the root of that life mission or life philosophy?
That's a really great question that I feel I am still evolving in, because I feel like it changes. I feel like what my core mission is, that I know I'm here to serve, and I'm a leader who is a servant. And that is part of my philosophy. And when I say that, it means, I don't think I'm any better than anyone else. I love the model of this, servant leadership model, for those people who don't know. And normally you think of a corporation and you think of the boardroom. What does that look like to you? Most of us, we envision a long rectangular table with the head person sitting at the top and everybody sitting down the side. Servant leadership is a round table where the person who is leading knows their strengths, but they also know their weaknesses, and they surround themselves on that round table with the people whose strengths are their weaknesses. And that is probably one of my most important philosophies that I try to live by, because what I also gain in that is the sense that I'm helping other people continuously by giving people that opportunity to shine in the way that they shine. And probably that's, for me, is helping people see why they're still important. If you are here, you are still important. You have a purpose. You have a meaning. It is too easy to get snuffed away, and you will be on the time that it's ready for you. You've done whatever it is. Or if your life, on the other hand, I've also worked with people, sadly, who have lost children, or people who are too early in life. But those people left early, so the people left behind who still have a purpose that they need to live up to can now live up to it. Because without that loss, they wouldn't have had the push to get to whatever they did. and that at least is your choice. I mean, not everybody does it, but maybe that's why those kinds of awful things happen to people. But I want people to figure out who they are, live their fullest, and contribute back, making this place a better place. That's what I want.
It's a wonderful thing to want. I love that philosophy, and I very much appreciate reminding people that whoever they are, whatever point they're at, wherever they are, there is a reason that they're here. There are good things that they can do and contribute. And I think working in geriatrics, that's a constant message is, I don't care if you can mow the yard anymore. That is not what your purpose is. That's not what your family loves about you. They love you because of your smile. They love you because of your stories. They never thought to themselves, well, the reason I love Dad is that he can mow the yard. And so I think that message that we're so much more is beautiful. And I love the way that you're sharing that with people.
Well, I want to, you had asked me a while ago, why did I choose seniors? I didn't choose seniors. Seniors chose me. I actually thought, when I was first told by Joe Spellman to start this charity, I would be working with burn survivors. And that's what I went to first. But I met him in November, and in March of the following year, I got a phone call from a girlfriend who said, Allie, would you come to this dinner with me? And I met the vice president of philanthropy for the AARP Foundation.
Nice.
And that's not where my vision for seniors was born. What happened was she said, do you have a book? I want you to come to Washington, and I want you to speak on a panel with 5 other authors. And I had been writing a book, and I really thought when I went to see Joe Spellman, when I told him about Beauty Becomes You, I said, my book is called From Glamour to Grace, Beauty Becomes You. And he said, oh, Beauty Becomes You is a charity. And she goes, no, you need a book. So I call my girlfriend and I said, how do I get a book? And she goes, okay, well, we can print it. She worked for Communicorp, which is the marketing company for Affleck. She goes, we'll print 35 copies for you. And I created The Gifts of Grace, which was based on Beauty Becomes You. And it is, I just have a few copies of it, but it just had a real inspirational beginning. And then you kept a journal. So here I am. I go to Washington to this AARP convention, a beautiful setting, and I'm sitting in this panel of 5 other authors who are like really renowned authors, in like one's written some financial spectacular book, and other people have written other things about, how to survive aging and all these things. And here I am, and I have my little book, and here's the story of Beauty Becomes You. And this is so funny because this is now 2005, and all these women, there's 300 to 500 women in this audience raising their hands, because around that time was when the Yaya Sisterhood movie was released. Yeah. And so they're all like, it's nice about the financial stuff, whatever. Alison, can we get your book for our Yaya Sisterhood meetings? And we would really like that. Anyway, I only had 35 copies. I didn't know how to make any more. And so that turned into a big book sell for me. Anyway, I came home from that. It still wasn't the lead to seniors. And I wish I could tell you the story about this ring, because that happened there in the Smithsonian. But maybe I'll come back to it. But too quickly, I came back, and a few weeks later, I was invited to the 40th anniversary for Senior Services of Metropolitan Atlanta by my sister, who was the MC for A Meal to Remember, the benefit they have for Meals on Wheels. And it started here in Atlanta. So she said to me, literally, Allie, you have to come with me, because this is going to be so boring. You have to come. So I go with her, and this whole center, I'd never been to a senior center in my life. It was lit up bright as day, every place. There was an Alzheimer's Day Center. There was a gardening area that people would gather and get the tools to go out and paint and garden for people. There was the Meals on Wheels area. There were all these things, and we were touring the facility, and I had to go to the ladies' room, so I went away and came back. And I saw this little section that was in the dark. Everything else was lit up bright as day, like a mall. Right. This was dark. So in this little area were 2 old shampoo bowls, 2 old shampoo chairs, and a manicure pedicure stand. And I went and got the manager of the center and I said, "Why is everything lit up bright as day and this is in the dark?" And she said, "It's really sad. This is the favorite place for our members, but we can't keep it staffed and we can't afford the products."
Right.
And that was where my mission was born. I knew I was supposed to turn that light on. And that's how I knew seniors was going to be who we served. And the program director there volunteered immediately to help me get my 501c3. There's just a lot that you have to do. Anyway, I could go on and on. I have very many stories.
It's fantastic. So I think that we will have to have you back again because this is we're really hitting the end of our second episode. So I think, in a few months we'll have to have you come back again and tell more stories because you're just so good at it. You're just such a good storyteller.
They're real stories. They're real stories. So
we can tell. I think that's very, very clear that they're real stories from you. So they're lovely. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you would like to talk about that in a short period of time, something that you want to make sure people hear or know about?
Well, Beauty Becomes You. We added a teen board in the last year during the pandemic, who I am so excited about. And, it's funny, when I started the charity 15 years ago, I said, I really like to have a teen board because I love to bring older and younger generations together because there's amazing just bond and sharing that occurs in each person, and they bloom. So we started the Bright Lights Teen Board last year, and there are only about 10, 12 members, and but they helped with our Circles of Light program last year, where we sent letters to over 300 seniors. They have done 2 legacy videos, and we want to do more legacy videos this summer. One was of a 100-year-old woman and another of a 90-year-old, very prominent Atlanta man. And then we are currently working on a book, which I am so excited about. I'm looking for help with publishing it and sponsors, of course, like you look for. But the book is called Illuminations, and it is a collection of inspiring thoughts from the BBY Bright Lights. And I love it because I tell them, 15 years ago I started, but the reason I didn't have a team board was because you were just born. They weren't ready. And now they'll be seniors, and we want to launch the book in the fall. But what we've done is every week I give them a word and they come back with a quote. And so each of them has taken 5 to 7 of those words, and they're doing a beautiful job, even the artwork, and they each have a chapter, and it is a phenomenally inspiring book. So anyway, we always need volunteers. We always need people that are thinking, how can we help more people? We want to get out and touch seniors again, the way we do through Days of Timeless Beauty, or getting professionals involved who want to donate their services directly, and then we can just direct people to salons. I think that's my new mission, is to do it that way. It's far more effective and ongoing. Mm-hmm. So anybody that wants to volunteer or has any great ideas or contributions, feel free.
And are you national?
Yeah, we've served all over the country. Okay. We've served, as I said, 5,000 seniors, more than 15,000 services. But what I really love to do is have chapters now, not just around the country, but around the world. I'm talking to somebody in Ireland right now about that, and really get it. The charity to a point where it actually has financial footing, and because I've footed it, I don't come from a wealthy background, but my credit card thing seems to think that it was. And but at any rate, it's time for it to become substantial because we really are affecting people's health overall.
Absolutely.
And careers and just everything. So yeah. I really would love to have a new board that wants to contribute in that way. But it's been a great learning experience, but it's very hard. Anybody thinking about starting a charity, it is not an easy feat.
It's a big task.
Yeah. And there's a lot of competition. Now, when I started, I want to tell you this, Lori, that there were 70,000 charities in the country when I started. And now there are 1.5 million charities.
I know.
and there's only so much money to go around.
Yeah.
So it's really important, if you want to serve, join somebody else who's doing it already, and do what you want. Find your passion in that way, because it's not about really running the charity or doing that. It's about providing the service or wherever the passion is, and it'll come. The right thing will come. But there are a lot of charities, and it's just very difficult from the financial perspective. So,
well, and I just want to mention the mental health benefits of this, because it is a very common thing. As a geriatric psychologist, I mostly visit people in care facilities, and it is often that I have in my recommendations regular visits to the beauty salon, get her nails done when someone comes in to do them, because that is incredibly helpful. And all of my clients, if they've had either of those services when I come in, say, they're so happy to have had them. It's such a wonderful human connection. They feel good about the way their hair looks or their nails. It matters. And so psychologically speaking, it is as good as therapy. It doesn't do all the same things, and I'm not saying I'm not necessary, but it really does add that boost to the mood that is necessary for therapeutic interventions to work.
They call it aesthetic health, and that's why it's called dermatologic rehabilitation, because you really are impacting the mental health. And that's what my degree is in, by the way. Mental health.
Yeah, you said that.
Right. So, but, just thinking, and I should, off record here, I have a video that if you wanted to plug it in, you could. And it's there. I have two, actually. One that was done by a local news station that did a piece. Actually, there's two of those. And then there's the L'Oreal Paris Woman of Worth one. But those all really have an impact, and their message is just what you've just said. I mean, how this does touch people, and people choose to eat, they get dressed, and they participate in social activities again because they feel better about themselves. And yes, they do still need therapy, and they still need someone to authentically listen and objectively hear them and listen. And that's what we do as therapists. But they also need to be touched, and they need to know they can do things on their own. That is really the most important thing. We all need to know we can do it, because if you don't think you can, you can't. Yeah. And that's a big message when I'm giving talks that I will talk about.
So thank you so much. This was quite wonderful. And if you want to at least send the links to one or both of those videos, we can include a link to that from the podcast. We'd be happy to do that. And I'd like to see them myself. I think they're probably really, really good and inspiring. So I would love to see them. We are at the end of time, I think. And if you have one other short story that you'd like to share with us, just as a wrap up, you are welcome to do that. And with this story, I just want it to be a story that feels like yours. It doesn't have to be inspirational. It doesn't have to be about anything we've talked about. It can be, but it can also be just a story of your life that when you look back at your life, you say, this feels like it's mine.
Well, I'm going to go back to my ring. And my ring has Latin on it, virtutum forma decorat, which means virtue adorns beauty. And when I was speaking at that AARP meeting, we were finished about 4:00. And so two of my girlfriends said, let's go to the Smithsonian, to the art gallery. And the Smithsonian closes at 5. We got there at 4:30. And we went into this one big room, and it had all the same paintings, like 1,000 of them that this artist had done, and only changed this tiny little thing in a landscape. So they're studying this. I'm like, hey, we only have till 5. So I talked to the security guard and said, how do we do this like on speed dial? And so he gave me a map, and he said, here's the Renoir, here's the Monet, here's the Degas, so anyway, we get on there, we're looking at there's Renoir, there's Monet, there's Manet, and then we get to this room where there's just one freestanding wall. So the opposite of the thousands of pictures. And it was this beautiful woman named Generva. And Generva was in France. She was a philanthropist who was known for her physical beauty and for the goodness that she did in the world. And well, my girlfriends were staring at her, and they're behind the picture, and I'm sitting on the bench again because I get bored easily. Anyway, and this painting was, by I always do this, but in the Louvre in France, who's the most famous painting that you can think of there?
Michelangelo, Da Vinci.
Yeah, Leonardo da Vinci.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this is the only painting on the North American continent by Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci. And they're studying it, and they go, Alison, come over here. You have to see this. So I go over there, I look, and they go, they took me to the back of the picture, which is why it was a freestanding wall. On the back of the picture was another picture, and it was a scroll, beautiful ribbon that said Virtutum Forma Decorat. So I ran, because now 5 to 5, I run to the gift shop, and I said, do you have a poster of this? And they said, because that means beauty becomes you.
Yeah.
Virtue adorns beauty. And they said, nope. And this one woman standing behind the counter and behind the person we were talking to said, wait, but we have one thing. And she took me over to this counter, and they had one thing, and it was this ring that says Virtutum Forma Decorat, which I've worn ever since that day. So there's my story.
That's a wonderful story, and beautifully wraps up everything that we've talked about. So thank you, Alison. This was such a pleasure. We will definitely have you back again. Thank you for everything you're doing. Please send me all your links and all your information so that people can check you out and connect with you. And everybody who's listening, please go back. If you haven't already listened to Alison's first episode, you definitely want to catch it. And thank you for listening. And I will be back again with another incredible guest. Thank you all.
Thank you.